Hello everybody and welcome back. Now in this playlist, we're going to be talking about paper 1, which is one of the 3 exams you're going to be taking at the end of the year. The subject we're going to be focusing on is subject 3, the move to global war. Now, these videos will be relatively short, relatively quick, and we'll be moving through events very fast because paper 1 is a skill and knowledge-based examination, more so than other exams. And so because of this, depending on how you want to try to allocate your points, try to earn your points, you can focus more on skill, you can focus more on knowledge. Of which that skill we will be practicing in class as frequently as possible. Now, what makes this exam so interesting is that there are 2 case studies that you're going to be given. Case study 1, Japanese expansion into East Asia, and case study 2, Germany and Italian expansion. Now, the reason for this and why this is interesting is because the exam is only going to be about one of these case studies. It'll be either about Japan or about Germany and Italy. So in this playlist, we're going to be going over Japanese expansion and Italian expansion. The reason why we are not going over German expansion is because that is covered in our authoritarian leader playlist, Hitler. So a lot of that is going to be covered there. And as you're going to see also with case study 1, Japanese expansion, about a quarter of it will be in our second authoritarian leader, Mao, and that playlist. So a lot of this is going to be double dipping in multiple case studies. And as you're going to see also in case study 1 and in case study 2, as you've seen with topic 10, authoritarian leaders, World War I is rather insignificant, hence why, for topic 11, we go over World War I. So, in this playlist, you're going to have Japanese expansion and then Italian expansion. So, what is it going to be covering? Well, the first part of Japanese expansion is the causes of expansion. This is broken down into 3 bullet points. The impact of Japanese nationalism and militarism on foreign policy. So this is where we're going to be looking at Japanese pride, Japanese pride for one's nation that turns into extremism, as we will see, and how that pride is also backed by militarism, both of which impacting their foreign policy, how they treated other nations leading to the war. The second bullet point is Japanese domestic issues. What's happening at home? What are the political and economic issues that are happening that then reflect in how Japan expands or goes to expand into other nations? These 2 bullet points we're going to be talking about the most in this playlist, because this bullet point right here, political instability in China, that is covered under our Mao unit. So all of that causes of Mao falls right there for that bullet point. And so all of this is just explaining how Japan built up to be this massive empire that sought to expand and see themselves as the superior Asian race, and thus they need to dominate, control, and push out anybody who wasn't either Asian, or if you were Asian, who wasn't Japanese. And we're going to see a lot of really aggressive tactics and a lot of aggression that gets slowly built up that turns into a massive issue. Now, the next part is, what was the actual expansion? How did Japan expand? Now, this is broken up into 2 different sections: events and responses. As we're going to be going over these, we're going to be going over them one and then one. So for instance, the first bullet point, Japanese invasion of Manchuria and northern China in 1931, that's going to be called the Manchurian Crisis, and we're going to go over that. And then the response to the Manchurian Crisis is known as the Linton Report, right? So this bullet point and this bullet point immediately follow each other, which then stands to reason the Second Sino-Japanese War, 37 to 41. The response to that is the political developments within China and the Second United Front. This bullet point right here, the Second United Front, that's covered in our Mao unit. So this part right here, and we're going to cover a little bit of this war, but we're not going to go too deep into the overall battle per battle as we have with other wars. And then finally, the three-power tripartite pact, the outbreak of war, and Pearl Harbor. This last bullet point is going to be interwoven into international responses, including U.S. initiatives and increasing tensions between U.S. and Japan, because they follow in back to back to back. That the increasing tensions with the United States has a direct impact on the outbreak of war, has a direct lead to Pearl Harbor. The tripartite pact then helps kickstart U.S. initiatives as well as other initiatives across the globe. So the causes, there's going to be a video dedicated to relatively each bullet point, whereas here they're going to be interwoven between the two, so that it just makes more sense, so that it's easier to understand and can be followed all significantly easier. So that is all 9 bullet points you need to know for Japan. Of those 9, a third of it, is all covered under the Mao unit. So when we learn that, we're going to be tying it back to this. Now, case study 2. Case study 2 is German and Italian expansion. It's both. But as I said, we're only going to be covering Italian expansion. And why is that? Well, as you're going to see in these following bullet points, it's all covered under what we already did with Adolf Hitler. So, for instance, the first bullet point. Impact of fascism and Nazism on foreign policies of Italy and Germany. We covered Nazism, how it was integral to the foreign policy of Germany, so you already know that. And fascism is Italy's version of Nazism. It's a different component, as we're going to talk about, and we hear it a lot, but there's some things we're going to explore as to the differences between it and the minutiae of it, on how that impacted Italy. Second, the impact of domestic economic issues on the foreign policies of Italy and Germany. We talked about that with Germany at length. There's an entire video dedicated to it, and there's an entire video dedicated to how Hitler manipulated the situation. We're going to be doing that for Italy. And lastly, the changing of diplomatic alignments in Europe, the end of collective security, and appeasement. This we did not, we kind of covered in our World War I unit. We kind of covered it in our German unit, but we're going to address it a lot more in our World War II unit following this. Because, again, all of this is leading to the outbreak of the Second World War. Now, for the second part of Case Study 2, we're going to be doing the exact same thing we were doing to Japan, where we're going to go over one bullet point, then the response, one bullet point, so on and so forth. But as you notice, the first bullet point is German challenges to post-war settlements. We covered that completely under Nazi Germany. The third bullet point, German expansion, the Pact of Steel, the Nazi-Soviet Pact, and the outbreak of war. We've already covered that in the German unit. So really, the thing we're going to be following the most here is Italian expansion in Abyssinia, Albania, and the entry into Second World War. And then we're going to talk about the last 2 bullet points of responses: international response to Italian aggression, international response to Italian aggression. The years there are very key. They're very, very important as to why they're going to be having these videos. So really, we're going to have this bullet point and these last 2 bullet points. And the response to German aggression, we covered that a little bit under the Nazi Germany, and we're going to cover it more in depth with our World War II causes, because they pile onto each other and make a little bit more sense, as we talked about with collective security and what all that means. So, all that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into Case Study 1, Japanese Aggression.